Now I got a request for adding a second jump to the character in Stencyl. So if you watched the last video on the jump correction, we have our crocodile moving left and right. We've got the jump going, but of course the jump is correct. Now if we want to go kind of traditional Super Mario Brothers, and we want that jump to be a double jump, that means you jump, tap jump again, and you do an extra jump. We can do that in Stencyl, but what we're going to need to do is work our way through there so that we've got a good idea of how to do it. So let's have a look at our code again, just to remember. We've got our X speed down to 0, right will move the crocodile 20, which means to the right, and minus 20 when the left is down means to the left. We've got our jump, and if you remember from the last video, we had to set up a new attribute or a variable called touch floor. So we're checking if the crocodile is touching the floor, and it's set to true. And of course, when we press jump, only if he's touching the floor, and you press the up button, we set the Y speed to minus 40, which is upwards. And as soon as he jumps in the air, we set touch floor to false, which means that you can't now press up again until he touches the floor. So that's how we did the jump. Now let's get right down to how to make the double jump. Now what you can see is I've made a brand new Boolean. It's the same Boolean that we did last time, which was called touch floor. And this time what I've called is in the air. So the idea is something like this. When we've got the crocodile on the floor, touch floor equals true. You press up, and what's going to happen is he'll jump up in the air because touch floor equals true. As soon as he's in the air, we set it to false, which means you can't press up again to jump again. But we need him to jump again. So we've made a brand new attribute. It's again a Boolean, a yes and a no, or a true and a false, and it's called in the air. What this attribute or variable is going to check for is the crocodile in the air at the time you press jump? And if he is, we're going to let you jump again. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new event. It's an always, so it's a when updating event. And what we're going to do is when, or should I say if, and again we need one of those double checks. And what we're going to do is we're going to say if up is being pressed down, and at the same time we now have to check whether, let's go back to our flow, whether, if we go back to attributes, so now we have to check whether in the air, Boolean, comparison, and true, so like so. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say, well, while he's jumping up in the air, we're going to check if you've pressed up again. And this time we're going to check the second attribute in the air and see if that's true. We'll get there. And if all of that happens, what we're going to do is we're going to take our actor, we're going to do the motion, and we're going to set the X speed, Y speed, again to minus 40. And we'll check that all later. So at this moment, nothing is really going to work because all we've done is say if up equals down, that means if we press up, and if in the air is true, you're going to set the Y speed to minus 40, but nothing's really set this to true or false yet. So let's go up. And what we're going to have to do is this. When we jump up, we are going to set the attribute of in the air to true. So let's go through the logic here. This is, of course, the jumping up and down. When you press up and you're touching the floor, set the Y speed to minus 40, which means jump in the air. Set touch floor to false, which means you're not touching the floor, which means you can't press up again. In this case, set in the air to true, which means we are now in the air. Let's rename this. So this is going to be called second jump, like so. Now what we're going to do here is very simple. We're going to say, well, if up in the air is true, set Y to minus 40. Now, just like last time, we have to immediately set it to false. Otherwise, again, like last time, you can just press up and up and up and start flying, which we don't want to do. Now let's check to see if this works at all. And what you can see, let's have a look. Well, no, it doesn't work because, well, something's gone wrong. So let's go and figure this one out, because left and right's working. Our jump still works. He's not flying, so that's good news, but something must have gone wrong. And the clue is actually, if we have a look over here, the clue is this. Because this happens at the same time, because we're setting touch floor to false and we're setting in the air to true at the exact same time, Stencyl doesn't know really what to do next, because this still we can't break, so you still have to be touching the floor to jump, although over here we've said if in the air is true, you have to jump up. But again, as soon as he's in the air, we set it to false, so we don't really know what's happening. Now, the way to solve this is actually quite simple. What we're going to do is we're going to go into our time. We're going to take our set in the air to true, and what we're going to do is set a very small delay, half a second. Now what's going to happen here is actually quite clever. So when we jump up, touch floor is obviously true because the crocodile is touching the floor. We're going to jump up minus 40. Immediately we're going to set touch floor to false. So you can't jump up with this control anymore. After half a second, we're going to set in the air to true. Second jump will now take over, and if you happen to press the up button while the crocodile is in the air, which equals true, we're going to jump up an extra minus 40, but while we do that, we're going to set it to false, which means we can only jump once using the jump, twice using the second jump, and then everything else should cancel out, so we shouldn't be able to fly. Let's just see if that works. There we have our croc. Left and rights are still working. And there's our second jump. So kind of Mario style. So what we've got is we've got the second jump. Let's just do that again. And just in case you don't believe me, I'm going to do that loud tapping again so you can hear me. And you can see that indeed we've got the second jump. Now, of course, you're in full control of that second jump, so you might say, well, minus 40 is a little bit of a, too big jump for the second jump, so you might just want to switch around your minus 40 for your second jump to minus 30, depending on the game and depending what that second jump is going to do. It's quite a complicated way to do a second jump. Again, you can adjust your timings over here, so it doesn't have to be 0.5, it can actually be 0.3 or 0.2. Let's just try 0.2 and see what that does to our second jump. Yeah, you can see that there's a much smaller delay, so I can kind of jump up and jump up again, or I can kind of do a really quick double tap. That can work in some games. I can see where that would work. And some games you might have to actually move the delay past 0.5. I wouldn't move it too far, because if you count 1, 2, you only get about 1.5 seconds for the crocodile to be in the air, so don't leave it too long, otherwise your second jump will happen almost when you touch the floor, so that's kind of useless. So hopefully the second jump is going to help out some of you who are making games, and remember, if you have any requests for features or things that you want the crocodile to do, just leave it in the comments and I'll see what I can do.